You said you expect to spend the rest of your days here. Yes. I don't think there will be that many days, but yes, I would like very much to spend the rest of my life here in Taimurang. That was always the dream. I've never felt a distance between me and the people who work in the commercial sex industry. In fact, I feel a lot more connection to those people because that kind of shallow, facile, transactional relationship fits perfectly into the way I'm wired.
Hey folks, Pete here from Thairish Times. What's the story coming at you from outer space? That was a bad joke. Anyway, if you've been following this channel, you'll remember that I interviewed Steve Rosse. He's been interviewed twice before. The first time I interviewed Steve was in Bangkok. The second time I interviewed Steve, we did it via Zoom, and Steve was in America. And the interview was about how Steve is moving back over to Thailand. And Steve, in the interview, mentioned he has a terrible pension. He plans to live very frugally. And a lot of people in the comment section after that interview, there was a lot of naysayers. And they said, Steve will never be able to live in Thailand on that kind of money and a bad pension. And his health isn't that great. And a lot of people said that he's been making bad decisions. Some people said he's been making bad decisions his whole life. Well, Steve moved over to Thailand. And he contacted me the other day and he said, Pete, how about I address the naysayers, the people that say, you're not going to make it, Steve. You're not going to be happy over there. Why are you going over there? So I said, yes, Steve, let's do it. We also going to get in some crazy other story, an epic story that Steve told me in a coffee shop in Bangkok about a couple of months ago. And when Steve told me that story, I was like, right, I need that on the channel. It's about how Steve was disrespected by Tiger Woods. Yeah, Tiger Woods. So that's a great story. It's coming up here. So we got a fantastic interview for you today. We're going to get into all sorts of stuff here with Steve. He's a great talker. You can tell a really good story, and he's great to interview. So without further ado, let's go meet Steve. And someone in the comment section said, Pete, stop saying without further ado. So maybe I should stop saying it, but I just said it. Let's get into it. Okay. Well, let's go straight into it because, like, I want to. It's no acting here. We're gonna get into your story. We started right now, right? So back in '97, Steve, you made a promise to yourself that you're gonna go back to Thailand and spend what you said was the last years of your life, right? We did an interview about 6 months ago where you were still in the States, and you said all this in the interview. Well, you're in Thailand now. You made it happen. Tell us, how is life over there for you?
So far, it's great. And I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop because, after we did that interview, lots of people said, well, he's never going to make it. He'll last a month. One guy said he'll last 6 months and he'll jump off a balcony in Pattaya. And I'm very pleased to have proven those naysayers wrong. But I also, of course, had those doubts. I've had 20 years to ponder this. And while I didn't plan anything very well in those 20 years, I did have plenty of time to agonize about it and wonder, am I going to be able to pull this off? I get $1,500 a month in Social Security. I've had lots of people in my own family, friends, people online tell me, well, you can't live in Thailand on $1,500 US a month. I have never yet spent my whole Social Security in any given month. I always have had a surplus. And
so what's that, Steve? $1,500. What's that in Thai baht? It's about
50,000 baht.
And you don't spend it all in a month.
000. Yeah, it depends on the rate of exchange, of course, and which ATM I use it to take out, because I don't have a Thai bank account. I'm just lazy. Yeah, and I don't spend that every month. I did a video which outlined my expenses every month. And if I don't travel, if I don't go anywhere, I usually have 10 or 12 baht left, 10 or 12,000 baht left at the end of the month. I have been traveling every month, at least to Phuket. I spend 4 or 5 nights a month on Phuket. I've gone to Bangkok 3 times in those 6 months. Went to Dean Barrett's 80th birthday party, just went up there to hang out on my birthday. My 65th birthday was November 6th. And that had always been, I don't know if you remember this, that had always been the projected date for my coming to Thailand. My 65th birthday, I would quit working and I would come to Thailand. As it happens, 6 months before that, 7 months before that, I fell asleep at the wheel driving home from work and almost crashed the car. And I said, when I got home, I said, I don't want to die on Highway 10. I'm going to quit now. The next morning I went in and gave notice. And May 13th, I arrived in Thailand. And so that's about 6 months. And other than the traffic noise,
you're going to blast through. Let me get some questions in there before you tell everything, right?
No, I really can't. No.
Let's
All right,
start off.
Go ahead. Have we met?
We've met now 3 or 4 times, and every time.
All right, so you're going to have to jam your questions in, dude.
Yeah, you're a talker,
but that interrupt and jam them in.
Yeah, but you're a talker, but it makes a great interview.
Yeah.
But anyway, right? So tell everybody, where are you living now?
I live in a town called Taimurang, and because that is an unwieldy name and unsonorous to the Falang ear, I call it Turtle Beach. I'm about an hour on the bus and 70 baht north of Phuket, and it's 13 kilometers of undeveloped beach. It's a turtle sanctuary, thus the name Turtle Beach. It will never be developed. There's not a hotel, there's not a bar, there's not a massage. There is nothing but little fishermen's huts on 13 kilometers of beach. And there's a road that parallels the beach, goes 13 kilometers up the beach. And I ride my bicycle every morning, 26 kilometers from my house to the end of the road and back. Taimurang means the end of the tin mine, because this was, all of this down here, Panga, is old tin mining country. And that's why they say Falang should not bathe in the well water here, because there's arsenic in the ground from the tin mining process, 200 years of tin mining. But this point where they used to use hydraulics to wash the tin out of the mountainside, and they would sift it and sift it and sift it. And there were these huge channels, these canals that ran to the sea, and the wastewater would flush into the sea. And if you were a poor Hokkien Chinese 200 years ago, you could set up camp where these runoff channels met the sea, and you could sift the last dregs of tantalum, tin ore, out of the water and sell it back to the Thai mine owners. You were allowed to do that. So Taimurang means end of the road, end of the line. And that's what it is for me. You said you expect to spend the rest of your days here? Yes. I don't think there will be that many days, but yes, I would like very much to spend the rest of my life here in Taimurang. That was always the dream.
Steve, why do you always talk about you're close to the end? You're not sick. You don't have any diseases. So why do you keep saying I've only got a couple of years left?
Well, I am 65. I have smoked at least a pack a day since I was 15. Smoked marijuana every day of my life since I was 15, and I've had 2 heart attacks. These are what are called the widowmakers, STEMIs, ST elevation myocardial infarction. I was 99%, the LAD, the big artery that supplies blood to the heart itself, was 99% occluded twice. The odds say I shouldn't have survived the first one. That's why they call it the widowmaker. I've survived 2. The doctors all say the third one, dude, there's no chance. You're not going to survive the third. So I carry a bottle of nitroglycerin everywhere with me. I ride the bike 26 kilometers a day, but I eat a diet that is a Thai diet. There's no Falang food in Taimurang. You can buy a 900 baht hamburger at the virtually deserted golf resort. But other than that, it's khao man gai, khao mu dang, and pad thai, and it's salt and sugar. I eat a diet that's like 50% salt and sugar. And this part, I'm going to tell you, a lot of people poo-poo it, but I take it very seriously. One night in 2003, I was housebound with social anxiety disorder. I didn't leave the house for 4 years, virtually. And I had a real problem with insomnia. I'd go 2 or 3 days without sleeping. One night I was awake at the end of 3 days of not sleeping. 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm sitting on the end of my bed, afraid of what I'm going to do, because I was at the end of my rope. I was frustrated and sad and depressed and ready to, do something stupid. And I don't believe in God, but I looked at the ceiling of my dark bedroom and I said, I will do everything you need me to do to be a good father until my kids grow up. But then I get 1 year in Thailand, just 1 year in Thailand, and I'll be satisfied. And I went to sleep, Pete. I went right to sleep. So ever since that night, I have felt that I committed to something that night, whether God was listening or not. I have to be okay with having 1 year in Thailand. I made a promise. So May 13th is the anniversary. I feel great at the moment. I've lost about, I don't know, 6-7 pounds since I got here. The bicycle's helping a lot. It has inflamed the bursitis in my shoulders. I can't lift my arm above about 90 degrees on this side. I have an old sports injury in both shoulders. But for the most part, yes, I feel good. But I made a promise that night, 2003, that allowed me to sleep. And I have always felt I have to be good for if I keel over or if something else happens. If my mother gets sick and I have to go home, my kids get sick, I win the lottery and decide I'd rather live in Puerto Rico, whatever. I have to be okay with just having a year here, which is great because it prompts me to live every single day like it's the last, carpe diem. There's lots of songs on the radio, live every day as if it's your last. Well, I kind of do because that thought's in my head every day. And I try to enjoy every day. And so far for 6 months, I've been successful.
So Steve, you're living the quiet life down there, right? So are you in like any relationships going? Are you dating any women, or is that on the cards?
My divorce, like I said, put me into social anxiety disorder, and I didn't leave the house for 4 years. My marriage, which was obviously a bad choice from the day we got married, damaged me for life. And no, I'm 65. I don't need a woman. I keep my own house. I cook. I eat out most of the time, but I can cook. I'm a good bachelor cook. I've lived alone most of my life. I'm an only child of a single parent. My mother was in graduate school in the evenings for much of my childhood. I've spent a lot of time alone in my life, and I'm comfortable being alone. At 65, I don't need a woman. Now, that being said, and I don't know,
go on,
because
Steve.
my family,
let it out.
My family watches this. Thailand offers opportunities to a man who has an income and a long-term visa to establish relationships outside what we would think of in America as the norm. Transactional relationships that are satisfying to both parties. And to me, these relationships are emotionally satisfying. I've never felt a distance between me and the people who work in the commercial sex industry. In fact, I feel a lot more connection to those people because that kind of shallow, facile, transactional relationship fits perfectly into the way I'm wired. I'm really good at first impressions. I'm really good at light, frothy, friendly, happy, funny relationships. As soon as it gets serious, I get dark, I get threatened, I get uncomfortable, and I run away. That's what the Rosse men do. We run away. My father ran away, his father ran away. And at 65, I'm not going to change, Pete. I am who I am. I'm not trying to change. I don't want to change. So those relationships, those facile transactional relationship with their very clearly set boundaries and rules, and my ability to control what goes on within that time. You go to a soapy massage, you've got 90 minutes, right? I know exactly what I want to happen in those 90 minutes, and they're very pleased to let me dictate what happens. And I'm clean, I'm friendly, I speak utilitarian Thai, I can carry a conversation. And like I said, I don't feel any animosity or superiority to these people. And so they register that. So there are people that I see regularly in that milieu, and I consider them friends. I don't know if they would call me pun, but I enjoy my time with them, maybe more than I enjoy my time with the Farang guys that every now and then, I can go a week without hearing English spoken in Taimurang. If I want to, I will seek out Farang companionship. And, there's a couple guys that hang on the beach at sunset every single day and drink beer and watch the sun go down over the Andaman Sea on 13 kilometers of undeveloped beach. Maybe twice a week, I'll ride the bike down there and sit with these guys. I don't drink beer, but I'll sit with these guys and talk. One's an Aussie, one's a Brit. And I get an hour and a half or so of English and of a Western Farang male perspective. An old Western Farang male perspective. And that's fine. Those are.
I was going to say to you, Steve, how do you find the Farang over in Thailand? Like the different types of people that you meet?
Listen, when I go to Bangkok and Phuket, my only metric of comparison is what it was like in the 90s. And in the 90s, if you saw another Farang, you made eye contact. You went, hey, how you doing? Because it was unusual, right? Now on Phuket and Bangkok, I avoid Farang. I avoid places where the Farang hang out. There's so many white guys, and none of them really, in my experience, have much that's interesting to say. In Taimurang, if I see a white guy in the market, I walk up to him and say, dude, where are you from? Do you speak English? Do you live here? Are you a tourist? What are you doing here? And they always respond because they haven't heard English in, except their wife's broken English. They haven't heard English for a week either. So here, I think I've met 9 Farang who live here. And one of them says he's been here 18 years. And before that, he was a forest monk for 12 years. And he's a real friendly guy because he says, you spend 12 years in a cave with nothing to look at but your own mind, and you're ready for company. So he's a real friendly Dutch guy. He reckons there's about 50 Farang living here. But I think at least 40 of them never leave the house. They stay in air conditioning. They watch Netflix. They're probably in their 70s. There's a 90-year-old guy here who walks the beach every morning. Andrew, I stop and say hi to him. But he reckons, Tuan, this Dutch guy reckons that there's probably 50 of us living in a town of, what is it here, 20,000? 20,000 people in the Ampeu, not in the town, but in the Ampeu. So yeah, you find them here because we there's a head above the crowd. There's all these black-haired heads, and then here's this blonde guy or brunette guy. He's a head above the crowd. You see him from 100 meters away, and I'll go seek him out. I did have one guy. I approached him and I said, I do a YouTube channel from Taimurang called Postcards from Turtle Beach, and can I include you in a segment? And he said, he was on his motorcycle at the market, and he said, I live here because I don't want to talk to Farang. And off he went. So I hear you, bro. Yeah, that's a great reason to live here. I'm sure he's very happy here. So that answers that.
So Steve, I was looking at the previous interview we did, and there was just one little part of it that made me, that kind of, you said when you were leaving America, you said goodbye to everyone. And one person you said goodbye to was your mother. And you said that you knew that you'd never see her again. How did that feel like when you were saying goodbye to her and you were coming over here, going over to Thailand, knowing that you wouldn't see her again?
Well, it felt like shit. But the Buddhist in me would quibble. I won't see her again in this lifetime. But like I said, I reckon I've got a year. Now, if at the end of a year I get bored in Taimurang and want to go home, I miss my mother's cooking, I'll go home. But my mother and I lived with my mother for the last 8 years. I was in America. She got sick in 2014. I was in Iowa. She was in New Mexico. I quit my job in Iowa, and I went down to New Mexico and lived with her for the next 8 years. I have spent 8 years sitting in the living room watching Wheel of Fortune with my mother. 8 years, every single day. Neither of us took a vacation. We have said, and again, I grew up, there was just the two of us in the house, me and my mother. So we have had a lot of time together. We have said everything to each other that we have to say, all the good and all the bad. And I felt like I said, I fell asleep at the wheel of the car. And I said, if I stay here, I'm going to die here in New Mexico. And I didn't want to live in New Mexico. I don't want to die in New Mexico. So I just felt like when I got home from almost crashing my car, I got to go. I got to go now. And she had been trapped by COVID in Iowa. So she had spent a year by herself in Iowa in what you might call a managed care, an independent living facility, because she didn't want to get on a plane and fly back to New Mexico. So the last year of those 8 years, we actually lived apart. So I was the curator of the Betty Museum. I was living in her house. I had nothing of my own. I jettisoned everything to drive a van. Everything I owned at the age of 56 fit in the back of a minivan. I drove to New Mexico, and that's all I had. Everything else in the house was hers. It was the Betty Museum. And it just felt like I had to go now, or I'm never going to get the chance. Either I will crash that car, because I had 90-minute commute. I was in that car for an hour and a half every damn day. So there's no work in New Mexico. I had to drive to Texas and back to find a crappy, low-paying job. And 90 minutes driving west on an absolutely flat highway through the desert, it's very, with the sun in your eyes, it'll put you to sleep. I mean, it's really hard to stay awake in that environment. So either I was going to have my third Widowmaker heart attack in New Mexico, or I was going to crash that car. Either way, I didn't want to stay, just to house sit and cat sit. So I said, Mom, I'm going. And goodbye, I love you. And I'm leaving. And I said that to my children. I said that to my high school girlfriend, said that to my best friend from high school, who's still a good friend. I said that to everybody. I drove across the from New Mexico to California, up the coast of Oregon, and then to Iowa to specifically visit family and say goodbye. And that was always the context. I don't know when or if I'll see you again. I love you, but I have to do this. And like I said, it felt like shit to say goodbye to my mother, but we still communicate. You know, we email, there's Messenger, there's whatever. We still communicate. And yeah, that's where it is.
So Steve, let's address the naysayers, okay? The people that said, you're not going to make it. Even if you do go over there, you're not going to be happy. The first one says, sounds like Steve has been making bad decisions all his life, and going to Thailand with no money at his age is a disaster. And another bad decision, sounds like drama follows him everywhere. What do you say to that, Steve?
A, my degree's in theater. Yeah, drama. Hello, made my living on drama. B, yes, I've made bad decisions my whole life. Like I said, I've smoked marijuana every single day of my life since I was 15 years old. Smoked a pack of cigarettes every day. During the Reagan years, during the Reagan administration, I was making a shit ton of money in the film industry. And I did a gram of Coke, 2 packs of Marlboro Reds, and 12 cups of coffee every single day.
How did you survive that? That would kill me.
Yeah.
How would you do that?
How? And working a very physical job, being a prop man on a movie set is a very physical job. You're moving furniture, laying tiles, plumbing sinks and toilets, carrying boxes upstairs onto the set. You work 16-hour days, 6 days a week, Coke to the gills, and drinking endless cups of New York coffee and smoking 2 packs every day. Yeah, I don't know how I survived that, but I had a really good time. I had lots of fun. I was making $100,000 a year and putting every penny of it right up my nose. So yes, they're right. I make bad decisions. I have very poor impulse control. I'm very self-centered. I'm an only child of a single parent. I'm a narcissist. But $1,500 a month in Taimurang, Thailand, is a shit ton of money. I have everything I need, and everybody I meet, every Thai person I meet here is living on minimum wage if they have a job, 300 baht a day. I shop in stores where ladies sit in the front of their store for 16 hours a day and don't have a customer, not a single customer in 16 hours of trade. And they go home with no money in their pocket. They close the shutters of their store and they go to bed. They haven't sold a single item all day. $1,500 US a month. Like I said, I have all the extras. I mean, I've got 7 kinds of marijuana in my house right now, 7 different kinds, hashish, bud, oil. I go to Phuket because there's no commercial sex in history in Taimurang, not for Farang anyway. So I go to Phuket, I go shopping, I buy clothes, believe it or not, I do buy clothes. I go out to dinner, I'll buy a 300 baht hamburger in Phuket on a trip, and I visit friends in Phuket. I don't miss anything. I have all my meds. I have found all my meds here in the pharmacy. It's super cheap on Phuket, all but one. I'm still looking for that one, but I'm not missing anything. I have every single day, I finish the day and go to bed and think, oh man, I never got around to this chore, to this task, this thing I wanted to do today. I need to do that tomorrow. My days are full, man. I've got a book I started reading in the airport last time I went to Bangkok. I came home and the book's sitting on my desk. I haven't had time to get back into that book. It is quiet because I want it that way. It is solitary because I want it that way, but it's not empty. Not at all. I got shit to do, man.
Steve, you mentioned impulse control, right? And in your last video, you mentioned that you were walking out to 7-Eleven and this young Farang boxer was walking in and you kind of clashed shoulders and there was nearly a fight right there. Now, you made that video out that was kind of like, it was all him and him kind of being aggressive. But do you think that you might have been involved in that as well, provoking him, or just the fact that maybe No, it was all him.
No, dude. The door at the 7-Eleven went bing bong and opened, and this guy came in and threw his shoulder into me. I was coming out with my packages and he was coming in and he intentionally shouldered me. Now I walked out on the stoop and I turned around, and from that moment on, I intended to be aggressive and confrontational. I wanted to tell him that what he had done was rude. I did not, because as people, if they go and look at the video, my pants were falling off. I was wearing drawstring pants and the weight of my new iPhone was pulling my pants off. So I stopped, I turned around, I tied up my pants, and the door went bing bong and closed behind me. And that was the end of it. But no, the initial aggression was his, which I might add, it was very unexpected in Thailand. Because again, my frame of reference is the 90s. There were no 7-Elevens on Phuket in the 90s, but Farang didn't go around throwing their shoulders into other Farang. You were, you might not have spoken to the guy, but you made eye contact, you nodded, you smiled maybe, but nobody was looking for trouble on Phuket 30 years ago. There were bar fights. Guys would go to a bar, watch a football game and get the fight. But there wasn't just some schmuck walking the sidewalk thinking, I've spent 2 weeks in the Muay Thai gym and I am trim and I am fit and I am hard and I'm going to take it out of the ring. I'm going to punch someone's lights out on the street, which is what he was doing. He was looking for somebody to get into it with. And I'm very lucky my pants fell off.
Have you gotten into any other altercations like that in Thailand?
In Thailand? Never. And dude, I shoot my mouth off in social media and guys get very angry at me, but nobody, and I'm fairly recognizable. And I go to Bangkok and I go to bars and there are people who say, oh, you're Steve Ross, I know your channel. Yeah, I don't like it much, or I like it, or whatever. But nobody has ever said, what you said about climate change is bullshit, I'm gonna punch your lights out. No, not here. Back in the States, my mouth got me in trouble, but not since New York, not since the 80s.
You did mention in one of the interviews that your mouth cost you like money, it cost you jobs. We mentioned you made someone cry and it was like it cost you a lot of money. Basically, it was, I don't know, some kind of contract.
Cost me a career.
What happened there?
Cost me a career. Well, when I went back to America in 97, I got a shitty job typing medical transcription. I did that for about 3 years. And then I got a job writing advertising. And I did that for 3 years, and I was very good at it, and it paid terrific. Well, it was $51,000 a year, which for a guy with a theater degree is terrific money. With a theater degree, I should be waiting tables. But I was writing copy, and I started to go through this divorce, and the divorce was kicking my guts out, and I was in a really bad way emotionally, and I wasn't sleeping. And I went to a meeting. I was asked to go to a meeting on a project I wasn't really involved in because it was the biggest client, the agency's biggest client. They did $1 million. They had done $1 million of business every year with our agency. And I was a woman, an administrator from a university, and we were doing the marketing and advertising for this university in Chicago. And it was all stuff. I wasn't on the account, but the account executive wanted everybody to be there to show her. She had an army working on her account. So I sat there for 8 hours and didn't say a thing, but I was looking for those 8 hours at a brochure. And I took offense at the tagline on that brochure. It was a lie. And at the end of the meeting, everyone's getting up to go. And the account executive says, hey, Steve, you haven't said anything. Do you want to say something? I said, yeah, your tagline's a lie. And everything stopped, right? Said, what do you mean? And blah, 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 blah. I said, this is why it's a lie. And I was right. It was a lie. She was promising something that her product didn't deliver. But she argued with me, and I argued back. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't swear at her, but I wouldn't let her go. And she was standing over the table trying to pack her briefcase. And I wouldn't let her. I wouldn't let her leave. The poor woman had driven 4 hours from Chicago to get to Cedar Rapids, Iowa, spent 8 hours in a meeting, and she had 4 hours to drive home. She just wanted to leave, and I wouldn't let her leave. And finally, she just burst into tears. This is a woman who makes $100,000 a year. This is an executive. And she's crying in the conference room. And she's gathering up all her papers and folders in her briefcase. And she says, we're through here. And she storms out to the ladies' room. And every woman in the room storms out with her. And all the men are left there staring at me with their jaws hanging open. Like, dude, you just torpedoed your whole career. So the next morning I came to work with boxes, empty cardboard boxes in the car, because I knew, I was going to be fired, and I was. There were only 3 advertising agencies in Eastern Iowa at that time. Within an hour, everybody at all 3 agencies knew what I had done, because it was so beyond the pale. And that was the end of my advertising career, and the beginning of the social anxiety disorder, because I had opened my mouth and torpedoed the best career I had found in America, the best career I would find in America.
And what did you do from there then?
I typed medical transcription at home. I couldn't leave the house for 4 years. So I found a job I could do at home in my pajamas. And I lived in my pajamas for 4 years. I would go at 3 a.m. shopping, because I knew I wouldn't meet anybody at 3 a.m, and realize I'm in my pajamas in the grocery store, in the Kmart. I had a long beard that usually had food in it, because I ate 3 meals a day sitting at my computer. I let my hair grow really long. I was in a really, really bad way. But I'm a very, very good medical transcriptionist for what it's worth. And that used to be a very respected and valuable occupation. Now, voice recognition software has destroyed that industry. When I started, there were 200,000 transcriptionists in the United States. Now there are 40,000. We've lost 160,000 jobs in those years, which is 3 times as many as coal miners lost their jobs. But no politicians are pandering to the medical transcriptionists. Nobody gives a rat's ass. But yeah, that I was very good at it. I'm wordy. I'm a hypochondriac, so I know a lot of medical terms anyway. And I type super fast. Last time I was tested, I was at 170 words a minute. And you get paid by production. You get paid by the line of type, 60-character line of type. So I was able to make enough money to support my family, not lavishly, but I paid my child support and a lot of stuff on top of that. My ex-wife took 50% of my take-home pay for the next 13 years, 50% of my net pay for the next 13 years. So yeah, but that's all over now. I'm much better now. I have overcome my social anxiety disorder, at least to the point that I am able to do this with you, though I am much more comfortable doing it in my home. Yeah, so that's what that is.
So Steve, what I really like about you is you're a fantastic storyteller, right? You've got the gift of the gab, and there's not many people on YouTube that can really hold my attention for, say, 15 minutes. And what's great about you is you are actually able to do it in one take. Not that many people can do that. So you just tell a story from beginning, middle, and end, one take, and that's it. But you're going to tell a fantastic story now that when you told me this in the coffee shop, it blew my mind. And at the time, we were in Bangkok, and I remember I was like, I need to get this on the channel. I need this story on the channel. And for whatever reason, I think your voice was gone, that we ended up not doing the interview in Bangkok at that time. But when you contacted me the other day and you were like, okay, let's do something, and that was the story, I was like, right, this is my opportunity to get this story of how Tiger Woods disrespected you.
Yeah, he got in at the end of a very long line. So it's the mid 90s, and I was making a living telling stories in the newspapers and magazines. And I had some very good years in the 90s. I sold stories. It was the end of print media, but it was a boom time in Southeast Asia. There were new magazines and newspapers everywhere. And I could sell a story to the Nation, and then 6 months later, sell it to the Phuket Gazette, and 6 months later to Phuket Magazine. And then there were literally hundreds of in-flight magazines for commuter airlines everywhere from Christchurch to Honolulu. And I was making real good money. We had a live-in maid. The only time in my life I ever drove a brand new car. So there's a place called the Blue Canyon Country Club in Phuket, which is a big fancy golf resort. And it had just opened, and they were having a real hard time getting people to come play golf for two reasons. One, at that time, Thais weren't really playing golf yet. And two, the place had been built on top of an old tantalum mine. And everybody was saying there's arsenic in that ground, and it gets in the grass, and it gets in your cleats, and you take it home. Don't play that course, you'll take arsenic home. And that's not an unusual thing, an unusual story. I had a guy tell me down here in Taimurang, up here in Taimurang, don't bathe in the well water because there's arsenic in the ground from 200 years of tin mining, and you don't want that on you. So they were having a hard time. So they had a big event called the Johnny Walker Golf Classic, big international golf event. And they had hired a local PR firm in Bangkok to do the local PR. And they were having a hard time getting anybody from Thailand to come cover this thing because Thai publications weren't yet interested in golf. They are now, but they were not then. So this woman called me and said, I know one of the magazines you write for is Thailand Tatler, which was a high-so lifestyle and fashion magazine in Bangkok. And she said, would you just write something about, we'll give you a hotel room for the weekend at the resort. We'll give you a big bag of GAC giveaway crap, all kinds of Johnny Walker branded hat and the gym bag itself, and 3 golf balls branded Johnny Walker and stuff like that. And you'll get a story. What do you say? I said, yeah, free hotel room, Falang food. Yeah. So I went, I spent the weekend there, and I don't know squat about golf, never have, never cared about sports, any sport at all. So at the end, on Sunday, I didn't have anything to write about. So I told her, I said, I'm gonna have to give back your bag of GAC. I can't find anything here I'm interested in writing about. She said, listen, there's this kid, Tiger Woods, and everybody says he's gonna be huge. He's 19 years old, he's not a pro, he's playing as an amateur. But he's the big star of the show. Everybody's coming to see Tiger. How about I get you lunch with Tiger? It's his last day on the course. It's your last day. How about you sit down for lunch? I said, yeah, okay. So at noon, I met him in the dining room. And, lunch is provided. It's catered. It's a paper plate with a sandwich and some potato chips and a can of Pepsi. And we sit down at a table with our paper plates. And it's this really good looking young black man from California. Well, I was born in LA. He was born in LA. So we start talking. Now, unbeknownst to Steve, Tiger's been interviewed by the press since he was 5 years old, and he hates the press. He still hates them to this day. But he had a deal with the golfing press in America, no personal questions. You could ask him anything about golf, but nothing about his personal life. Nobody told me. I'm writing for Thailand Tatler, a lifestyle magazine for 20-something Thai women. So I sit down with this gorgeous kid and I said, hey, do you have a girlfriend? And he kind of, so what kind of music do you listen to? My third question was, do you consider yourself black or Thai? And he looks at me and he stands up and he says, I got to hit the showers. And he walks away from the table. Now the room is full of Japanese, Singaporean, Chinese golf reporters who all would love to interview Tiger Woods, but they have no English and he only speaks English. And they've been watching me. Why is the big star sitting down with this local schmuck who writes funny little columns for in-flight magazines? They're all jealous as hell and they're glaring at us through the whole, 3 minutes he sat with me. They're glaring daggers at me. He stands up and walks away, obviously disgusted with me. And it was almost like you could feel a psychic round of applause go around the room. He stops, he turns around, he comes back to the table, he picks up his paper plate and his Pepsi, he turns around without a word and walks away again. He's not going to the showers, he's going to go eat his lunch. So after being disrespected in front of a room full of people, I thought, I got to call this woman. I blew the interview. She's going to be furious because she set this. I'm the only person in the 3-day event who got to sit down for a private meal with Tiger Woods. And I got 3 questions. He didn't answer any of them. But later I went to the bar and there was this enormous black man sitting at the bar. And I thought, Jesus, in this company, that's got to be Tiger's dad. Can't be anybody else. There were no black people on Phuket in 1993, 4, 5, whenever it was. So I sit down a couple stools away from this guy thinking, how do I start a conversation? I took out my cigarettes, I lit a cigarette. He slides down next to me and says, can I bum a smoke? Turned out the Blue Canyon was so new, they had a liquor license. They didn't have a tobacco license. He didn't have any cigarettes. He was a 2-pack a day man. He was jonesing. I slid my cigarettes and my lighter over to him and I said, I'm Steve, who are you? I'm Earl Woods. Oh, are you Tiger's dad? And boom, I sat with that man for an hour and I got the interview I needed. What father doesn't like to talk about his son? He told me everything personal, including, does Tiger think he's black or Thai? Tiger thinks he's black. Tiger does not like his Thai family. Tiger has absolutely no connection to Thailand. His mother's family disowned her when she married a black man. She came from a very wealthy family, very powerful, wealthy family. And she married a black soldier and her family cut her off. So they went to America. They never came back. Tiger was born in America. He had absolutely no emotional connection to Thailand. He was very unhappy to be there. So I got all that. Then he invites me to go sit with Tiger's mom and all her sisters. They're sitting around a table. She hasn't seen her sisters in 20 years, but now dad's dead. And now the sisters, because her son's obviously going to be rich and wealthy and famous, the sisters are sitting with her in Team Tiger t-shirts, all of Tiger's aunts, and they're eating it up and they're yakking it up. And I sit down with all these Thai matrons and I got more of that personal stuff. And I got a photographer. I hooked up with a photographer who had a picture of this beautiful face, this gorgeous young man. And I got my article. I sold it to Thailand Tatler and I think a Singapore golf magazine or a Hong Kong golf magazine. Yeah, so I got my own against Tiger. And I have a feeling Tiger would remember me out of the hundreds of people who've done interviews with Tiger, because I put stuff in my article nobody else has ever asked him. And he didn't give it to me, his parents gave it to me. So I think he remembers me with some disfavor.
Let's talk about your channel, right? So what you're doing is very unique. You've behind you there, we're going to get into what's behind you. So I was watching one of your videos. It came up, I think about 2 weeks ago, and I watched it and I was like, whoa, Steve, you put a lot of time and effort into something that not a lot of other, actually, well, you're the only Thailand-based YouTuber that's doing it. And it's very unique and it's very creative and it's different. And it's not the usual crap that we see in the Thailand niche. There is a lot of crap out there. So you're actually, let's get into it. So tell us, what have you done? Well, first, I've been shooting off my mouth in the comment section for years that what we see is a white sausage fest. It's old Farang guys
carrying a GoPro down Walking Street. And that's it, you know, or how many times do we have to watch someone climb up Doi Sutep for, you know, I mean, that's what it is. Here the guys are laying the tile in my swimming pool here in Ubud. Geez. So I've been saying there's no creativity, there's no wit, there's no risk taking. Art is risk taking. If you're going to seek attention from the entire world, you got to give them something. You got to take a risk. You got to do something that's unusual. So having shot off my mouth that way for years now, I have to. I can't just carry a camera down Walking Street. I did one video that was my morning bicycle ride, 26 kilometers of me holding up the camera while I rode my bike. But that's it. Other than that, the first 6 months, the first 24 episodes were a variety show format, like the old Carol Burnett show or Laugh-In or something like that. 3-minute skit, 4-minute skit, 8-minute monologue, 3-minute wrap up, a musical number, one of my friends plays, you know, it was a variety show, bing, 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 bing. That got me about 400 views, maybe in a good month, 500, and about 500 subscribers. Now there's a guy named Roy Bott, who you know, and a guy named JD Strange, who you might not know, but he has a YouTube channel that's very creative.
I interviewed him.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. I remember that, in a bar somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. So JD Strange and Roy, since I got here, have been saying to me, we should make little movies from all your old short stories. Because in the 90s, like I said, I made a living selling short stories and essays to various magazines and newspapers. I got 5 books of short stories and essays and 1 novelette on Amazon. Probably 20 of those stories are set in a little beach bar full of farang. So they said there's this story, Necessary Things, which is about a man who's held captive in a Nana hotel room by a hooker. And we want to dramatize that. We're going to get a cheap hotel room, we're going to hire a model, and we're going to shoot a little movie. And we did. We shot a 10-minute movie of Necessary Things. It got 4,000 views in 48 hours. And keeping between 25 and 30% of the audience all the way to the end, which for me is excellent metrics. That's analytics I'm very happy with. Well, it took some money to rent the hotel room. It took some money to hire a model, but it only took an hour to shoot the thing and a couple hours to edit it. And it was much more successful than the variety show format. So I decided, let's take the channel in that direction. But here in Taimurang, like I've said, there's no bars, there's no massage, there's no go-go disco, none of that crap. There's fisherman huts and there's a Guidio place and there's an Isan food place, and that's about it. And a guy who repairs bicycles. Where do you find a guy who repairs bicycles anymore? And so I don't have a bar where I can go and shoot. I don't have a bunch of farang who are happy to appear in a video and read lines off a script. So what I did is I built a set of a farang bar on a beach on Phuket, because all my stories are set on Phuket from the 90s. And I did one video last week from one of those stories. Now my talent, since I don't have a bunch of farang who will read my lines, but they sell in Taimurang millions of kinds of cheap Chinese toys. You can buy, here, excuse me for that terrible angle. You can buy a little action figure for 10 baht, right? And you put a little beer bottle in his hand and he's a farang in a farang bar, right?
Brilliant,
there's a little pool table, they shoot pool, and I dramatize my stories, or I've dramatized one story so far. That one got 1,500 views in 2 days, which again, for me, and again, retention between 25 and 30% staying to the end. And boy, it's not going to make me any money, but I have Social Security. I don't need to make money off this. It just gives structure to my day. And it allows me to dress a set, which is what I did in the movie industry. I was a set decorator and a set dresser, a prop man. Listen, it's much better than the lighting. It's much better than the sound recording. It's much better than the direction. The writing is on a good par. I think my writing, particularly back then, was very, very good. But set dressing and props is what I do. And going out in this little burg and finding appropriate props. And today I made a backpack. I have a story where a character carries a backpack, a tourist carries his backpack into the bar. I needed a backpack this big, so I made one. And that took me a couple hours in the afternoon. You can't go outside in the heat. So I stayed in front of the fan in the living room, and I made a little tiny backpack to go on one of my action figures. And you're right, and I'm not blowing my own horn here, but it's different from anything being done in Thailand right now. I don't know if anybody's doing this in, Costa del Sol or Puerto Rico or Belize or where, but it's very reminiscent, I think, of Like, or what do they call it? Lakon, the old shadow puppets.
Yeah.
They used to be everywhere. You used to go to a temple fair and all the kids would line up in front of the shadow puppet play. And that's what it is. It's puppet theater. And I attach sticks to their legs and I walk them, and they turn, they react. And I bought a new iPhone. I bought an iPhone. I'm not shooting on a Samsung piece of crap anymore. And I can get right in their faces. And they've got these cute little painted faces that show expression. And if you get 3 Hulks, they each have a different expression. They're all the Hulk, but one's surprised, one's angry, and one's confused. Okay, so you've got 3 expressions. This actor can deliver 3 emotions on camera. That's 2 more than Keanu Reeves can deliver. So if I can get an audience like Keanu's, I'll be very happy.
So Steve, what's the plan? What's the content coming up? What are you gonna? What are your ideas? Like, what are you gonna develop these characters, give them names, and give them each a different storyline?
Yeah. I mean, this is Steve. Okay, Steve's a rubber chicken because Steve's not Captain America. He's certainly not Superman. I have the rage of the Hulk inside of me, but not the physique. So Steve's a rubber chicken. And Steve narrates all of my old stories. There's typically either an omniscient observer narrator or me. And so Steve is there and Steve's watching, which is, what I do. I go to a party, I stand in the corner and watch everybody and listen to everybody. And at the end of the evenings, my favorite part of the party is going around and emptying the ashtrays. So Steve stands in the bar, he shoots pool in the bar. Like I said, there's a little pool table. Steve shoots pool and he listens and he describes what he has seen. And there is, so far we've established an American character. And part of the problem is right now I'm reading these stories and I do terrible accents. That's why I was never an actor. My Irish accent, you would turn this off right now. If I did my,
Well, if you have a bar in Thailand, you got to put an Irish actor in there. There needs to be an Irish man in there.
I know. Do you want to read a script with me?
I could do a voiceover for you. That'd be funny. Yeah, I'll do it for you. Yeah, no problem.
Now, see, here's the next step. Right now, I'm editing on the software that comes free with a PC. It's Microsoft's, shitty for 12-year-old kids doing a school project editor. I cannot edit sound on this thing. I can have, for instance, today I recorded the next story. It took 6.5 minutes. That video has to be 6.5 minutes long because I cannot chop up that piece of sound. I can lay it over 100 little video clips, but I cannot chop up that piece of sound in this editing package. So also my new iPhone doesn't like to talk to my old PC. Transferring big files from the iPhone into the PC, it's like pulling teeth. It drives me nuts.
What PC are you using?
It's a Samsung. It's what I could afford, I mean, it's and I thought, oh, that clunky amateur quality, it makes it charming. It makes it accessible. No, it just looks clunky. And you can see right here, using the camera on my laptop, I've got a light. I bought a light to shoot, close up on this thing. But even so, if I go back and forth, the white balance gets all screwed up. On the iPhone, not so much. But you could, with software, you could smooth that out. I think the next step is to buy a Mac, to edit on. But again, I live on Social Security. 50,000 baht a month gets you a real nice life here in Taimurang. It doesn't buy you a MacBook, it doesn't, Not yet, anyway. And I have on the channel, you know, buy me a cup of coffee. Here's my PayPal, that kind of stuff. And people very kindly, a guy named Steve Austin has sent me $100 from Australia. Wow, thank you, Steve. If you send me what, 15 more of those, I can buy an iMac, you know. So that's, as far as tech, that's the next step. And again, I'm much more comfortable driving all over Phang province to find little chairs this big for my bar than I am buying a new piece of hardware. That was never my life. This kind of tech was never my life. That kind, building sets, painting sets, plumbing a sink for a commercial about soap. That was my life. So I've got to bite the bullet, sack up, and get better editing software, I think. And then we'll have Pete doing a real Irish accent. I won't embarrass myself.
Well, Steve, we'll leave it there. What we'll do is I'll leave your channel, the link for your channel in the description. I'll also pin it in the comment section. And then I'll leave your books in as well. Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And I will say, you know, one very pleasant thing, since having the channel, the sales of my books have quadrupled. It's a wonderful commercial for Steve's books on Amazon. If you're one of the 10 people in Thailand who still like to read a book, go look for Steve Rosse. And the other thing I want to say is it's spelled R-O-S-S-E. You can click the link in the description, or you can simply look for Steve Rosse, R-O-S-S-E. I'm the only one there. Oddly, the world's most famous tuba player is named Steve Rosse with an E, R-O-S-S-E. He's really famous in the world of brass instruments. Who knew there was a world of brass instruments? He's the world's most famous tuba player. So you look for Steve Rosse with an E who's not holding a tuba, and that's me.
Okay, well said, well said. Steve, take it easy, and we'll do it again. We'll talk again. We'll chat on email, and I'm looking forward to seeing your videos.
Thank you. And Pete, may I ask, does the book Leaving Thailand have any extra resonance these days for you?
I remember you asked me that before. Yeah, a little bit. But I don't plan to get divorced, Steve.
Good. Yeah, don't. I recommend against it. I recommend against it.
Yeah, I'm happy. Look, I'm happy. I'm meeting new people, and life's a journey, and this is just another chapter. And a lot of people say, you know, you're crazy for leaving, Pete. What are you doing? But like the way of work. Now I'm in sales. I'm working in sales right now. Who's to say in 5 years' time I'm not working for a Western company online, selling online, while living in Thailand? Who's to say that won't happen?
There you go.
Never know what can happen.
There you go. From your
Anyway,
lips
Steve,
to God's ears.
Exactly.
Thank
Take
you,
care of
Pete.
yourself. I'll talk
Best
soon.
of
All
luck.
right. Bye. Bye.
All
See
right.
you.